Ratan Tata has left us. An industry and philanthropy icon has left behind a legacy which will inspire generations of Indians. His life is a study for everyone who looks at him as a role model. Born to humble parents, his father actually was growing up in an orphanage, a Parsi orphanage in Gujarat, when he was spotted by the wife of Jamshedji Tata and adopted. From there, later on, much later, when Ratan Tata was born, he had this fierce ambition to succeed and do well. He studied in Bombay and then in universities abroad, and he started in 1960 in a very junior role in the Tata Group. He started looking at admin and then moved on to the shop floor and learned the ranks. He worked hands on and grew up the ranks till one day in 1991 he succeeded J.R.D. Tata, and then what he did was history. He converted this group into $100 billion conglomerate. It's huge. In a country where we don't look at industrialists like in the US they do, he was one industrialist who was universally loved by everyone in India. More importantly, it didn't matter which political color or which party or which politics you followed, but you all, every Indian, loved Ratan Tata. Some of the things which personally makes me a big fan of Ratan Tata is the launch of the Nano. Whether it did well or didn't do well later doesn't matter. But the ability to realize that there was a need of a very low cost vehicle for the Indian market and to go ahead and invest in a plan to manufacture that completely in India was just far-sighted, brilliant. The other two things which strike to me is the acquisition and signing of the deal for the Jaguar Land Rover deal. This suddenly made India and put it right in the top of the automobile landscape globally. And to go and buy these factories in the UK was a huge moment for all Indians. And don't forget, Asia's largest IT company, the building and the growth of TCS, Tata Consultancy Services. Every Indian is proud. I've spoken earlier in some of my videos that one of the standout things of TCS is how every employee seems to be happy there, from the security guard outside to everyone inside. That was Ratan Tata's legacy. And finally, don't forget that 60% of the Tata Group profits, he actually spent it on philanthropy, on helping people, helping animals. It was spent on charity, on education, on healthcare. His focus on giving back to the society made the Tata Group not just a profit making monolith, but an organization which had social welfare at its heart. When you watch his working style and leadership style, there are a few things which emerge so strongly, and I will just point them out for any young listeners to emulate and look at him as the role model. The first one, the top of the list, is humility and genuine care for his people. The way he very humbly greeted everyone in his organization, spoke to everyone. There was no issue of hierarchy. There was no problem on those stuff. Everybody loved him. And for me, the standout picture is the way he stood outside the the Taj Hotel, when it was attacked on 26/11. And what he did after the attack and when he went in, and how we spoke to the people and how we took care of the survivors and the people and the staff. And don't forget how the staff thought it was their duty to protect their customers and the way they risked their own life to do it. That all comes from a company culture which starts from Ratan Tata. He looked at business with a very long term view. If you look at everything he did, it had a very long term view which needed patience and not a short term quick profit view. Case in point in this is his acquisition in internationally and abroad, including the automobile deal with Jaguar Land Rover. Risk taking and innovation, and like I said earlier, the launch of the Nano was a big risk. Didn't know whether that would work. That's a small car. They obviously had done a market study and they said decide to go with it. And they chose a state where industry didn't happen too much. They went to Calcutta, near Calcutta, and they had to go through a lot of agitations, took a call to move out and went to Gujarat. In this whole thing, and many, many more examples, you'll realize that he had this huge appetite for risk taking and was not scared of failures. I haven't yet met a very successful leader who was scared of failures, who was scared of taking risk. That's a lesson there for all of us. The other thing which stands out and it sort of signifies Ratan Tata and all his companies are its ethical standards. He personally believed, and that has become the culture of that group, to maintain the highest standards of ethics in every business interaction that they did, even in tough situations. Empower people. He believed in giving freedom to his managers to take decisions, risk taking, accepted failures, but he gave them the freedom to make decisions and to run the business. So you see, a lot of their managers actually went in, some of the first line, and did innovation and took actions which probably would not have happened in a different environment. He looked beyond business. He created an impact on India and the world. He built a brand that was synonymous with trust and quality and ethics. And his acquisition abroad made Tatas a name globally, which people recognize everywhere in the world. In summary, while we mourn him, there is so much is left behind for us to emulate and learn. He leaves behind a legacy of doing business with strong values and purpose. This will inspire all Indian businesses and also businesses globally. I want to end this commemoration for Ratan Tata with one interview which I saw, where this lady was interviewing Asan. This was about 2 years back, and said, "Now that you are sort of retired from full time work, how do you want to spend your time? What do you want to do?" So he shows to a musical instrument which looks like a violin and says, "I want to learn practicing, I want to learn how to play an instrument like that." So she says, "Yeah, good. So when do you start?" So he says, "I'll take my time because it's a very expensive instrument. So I'm a little hesitating to buy." Expensive means what? A few lakhs. Ratan Tata hesitating to buy a musical instrument which he has a passion to learn just for a few lakhs. So she's surprised and she says, "That's not too much for you." What he says is what I want to leave this video with. He says, "All my life, I have never spent on myself. I have always spent on others, and I don't know how to spend it on myself." Think about the greatness of this man. Rest in peace, Mr. Tata.